This is the regular meeting of the Administrations and Public Works Committee. We do have a quorum. Could we have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the September 12th meeting?
I move approval of our minutes from September 12th.
It's been moved in second. Are there any additions, corrections, concerns? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Items for consideration. The City of Evanston's payroll through September 11th, 2011 is $2,595,718.06. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the bills.
No, this is the payroll.
Payroll, sorry, the payroll.
Okay.
September 11th.
All right, payroll. It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The City of Evanston's bills through September 27th, 2011, $4,125,553.02. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the bills through September 27th, 11th.
Been moved in second. Are there questions on the bills? And have you had a chance to look at your questions that were submitted? Alderman Rainey. Let's try for 3. We'll just review the bills for a couple of minutes. These are questions that were posed and answered by the staff. So give us a couple of minutes to run through those, and we'll move ahead.
It covered the lead abatement costs, correct? Totally. Yes.
Was that the highest you ever had? I mean, is it a huge house, little house, what?
No, it's probably 1,800 square feet at the most. But based on the age of the house, which I believe this house is about 100 years old, many of the components, window frames, doors, siding, porches, all had lead-based paint. And there's 2 young children, 4 and 6 years old, which is the high-risk age for lead, lead poisoning, which can have the biggest impact on brain development.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Alderman Brathwaite.
Just a real quick question. It's on Human Resource Division 1929, the Laser Association testing.
I don't know, what page do you know?
It's on page 89.
Good evening, Alderman. Is there any other, I don't have those documents, is there any identification after laser for what the tests were, sir? We use, though, that particular group for police officer testing, also telecommunicator and 311, so it could have been any of those positions because all 3 of those positions are open right now, and I will get you the specifics on that tomorrow via email and the rest of the members of the committee. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Alderman Rainey.
Under, let me find it now. Interfaith Housing Center, it's 2127.62605. A payment for $5,000 for landlord-tenant to Interfaith Housing Center. I think they're absolutely the most competent organization in Cook County to handle landlord-tenant issues now that we no longer have a director of human relations. However, it would have really been nice, and I must have missed the memo, to have known about this, because lately I've had several cases that I really shouldn't be answering questions on, that I could have referred, but I didn't know that we had contracted with them for these matters.
Alderman Holmes, so
Thank you.
and Alderman for the
Did
the
everybody
committee.
else know? I mean,
What we did, Interfaith had already been doing for the region. And when we had an employee that used to handle that, I found out that they were basically a middleman referral in some of the harder cases, just like you're talking about, the tougher ones, were being forwarded to Interfaith Housing anyway. So what we opted to do is have all Evanston calls, and these are only for tenant-landlord disputes, not involved with any construction, code violations, et cetera, where there's an issue with rent and payments, possible evictions, that sort of thing. And yes, ma'am, that's what we have them do for us. And I apologize if I didn't get that out.
but we need to know these things. That's
Yes.
all I'm saying.
Mr. Griffin?
Especially those of us who have lots of tenants with lots of problems and landlords with problems.
Does the agreement include, like our agreement with them for the foreclosure and the counseling, having someone here at the city?
Yes. Yeah, they're here
on
2
Thursdays,
half days a week,
Two
but
and a half,
most of
huh?
it they're able to handle over the phone. And if
Okay.
they can't handle it over the phone, then it's scheduled for those 2 days a week. They're on the 3rd floor.
Okay, well, do you think we could have a memo or something we could send out to residents so that they would know
I'll be
how
glad
to
to.
contact them?
I'll be
And
glad to get that.
who to talk to there? I mean, who
Yes.
are we supposed to be calling?
I'll get that.
Anything else, Alderman Rainey?
I think so, but the business with the refunds on when people move and close out their water bill account, for 20 years, as far as I know, we have been refunding any overpayment. And those calculations end up at the closing, they have to pay their water bill before the closing. So what we've always seen on our bills list is a refund under the water fund, and then a refund of the proportionate amount of overpaid sewer taxes under the sewer fund. I keep being told every time I ask that, no, not anymore, we're just refunding it all under the water fund. Well, we have two distinct funds. One is a water fund, one is a sewer fund. Why are we combining it in the water fund? Shouldn't the proportionate amount be deducted from the sewer fund?
Mr. Lyons?
Members of the committee, Marty Lyons, Assistant City Manager. Answer to one question as to why they are combined. Presently, for most overpayments, when there is an overpayment where the amount is above and beyond the bill amount, the amount over the bill amount goes directly into the account, that 510 account that is referenced in the memo that you have. Because I asked the exact same question today. Why wouldn't we do it on a prorated basis? So when we put in the new water billing system approximately 2.5 years ago, it was set up such that any overpayment for water or sewer went into this liability account, meaning it does not go as a revenue and it does not go as an expense. It sits there because it's recognized as an amount over what is owed. So it sits off of our income statement. Now, to your point, Alderman Rainey, I guess I don't have an answer for that, and I'll research it further, why in the event of a closing, when it's not really an overpayment, it might be a transfer or things of that nature, why that wouldn't get credited back. Hitesh, do you have any?
No, right now, but yeah, as you mentioned, right now we put all the overage into the one account, so
Well,
that we can better track that, yeah.
But I will get back to you because that is not the question as I thought of it, and I apologize.
Here's the question. Why is it different today than it was a year ago? How about that? Why is the reporting on the bills list different today than it was a year ago? I don't know exactly when it
Because
changed.
we changed billing software systems.
Okay. When does the sewer fund get their money?
As I noted before, when it isn't, I agree I need to bring you back that answer for closings. When does the sewer fund get its money, and I will do so.
Most of these are closings, right?
I do not know.
Could you check that?
I will.
I believe they are. Thank you. Thank you for trying. It's probably just over my head. I don't know.
I asked the wrong question today as well, so.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on to A3, approval of the sole source purchase of Devitt Arm streetlight replacement fixtures from the American Induction Technologies. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the city manager to execute a sole source contract with American Induction Technologies, AITI, in the amount of $128,000 to purchase 200 replacement streetlight fixtures for the following areas: the West Evanston TIF District, Church Street from McDaniel Avenue to Darrow Avenue, and Chicago Avenue from Howard to Sheridan Road. Funding will be provided by the Capital Improvement Fund, the Streetlight Upgrade Program, luminaire replacements in the amount of $80,640, and by the Economic Development Fund in the amount of $10,240, and by the West Evanston TIF Fund in the amount of $37,120. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Are there any questions? Alderman Rainey.
I want to know why isn't Chicago Avenue in the Washington National TIF?
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. Paul Schneider, City Engineer. Yes, I believe a one-block section, I believe, I don't have the map in front of me, but I believe that there's a short section of Chicago Avenue that may fall within that TIF.
The reason I am asking is because I think there are enough sources without dipping into the Economic Development Fund to put, I mean, it seems to me my recollection of seeing the map is that the Economic Development Fund is funding a portion of the new lighting on Church Street way west.
That's correct.
And I was thinking if we could add in the Washington National TIF money and then use CIP over on Church, in other words, switch it over, I just didn't understand why we didn't go to the Washington National TIF.
Actually, it's the way that this project developed. Initially, when we were looking at it, we were looking at a West Evanston that was really solely looking at Church and then the West Evanston TIF area.
Yeah.
As that developed, then we also tapped into the CIP account to make it all one order. You're right. We could possibly substitute. I don't know that it would be an equal wash, but it's something I can certainly look into.
Well, the CIP account is for this, and the West Evanston TIF is there for these kind of expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems that I can't see the justification for using the Economic Development Fund for West on Church Street. I mean, it's not, there's not much to develop economically over there other than housing.
Alderman Rainey?
Yeah.
We will take a look at it.
Would you?
Yes, we will. In between meetings, and if we can make an adjustment, I'll talk to Marty, and we'll see about moving the fund numbers if there's enough.
Yeah.
But as Paul mentioned, it may not be $10,000 worth of work that would come out of the out of the Washington National TIF.
But the
we'll-
light shines south and
Yes.
north, so
Yeah.
maybe you could,
Well,
But I think
I'll
it's
talk
a-
to both Marty and Steve about that. and
It's
we'll
a
see what we can do.
wonderful plot of lights. I mean, that's
Yes.
perfect. It's going to be great. But I think we should find all, the most reasonable forms of payment for these things.
Yes, we'll do it.
Okay. Alderman Grover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Schneider, will these fixtures achieve this superior energy savings because of the fixtures themselves or because of the bulbs they use, or both?
Actually, the technology is induction lighting technology. It's similar to what was used on the Talmadge lights when those were replaced several years back. What we'll be doing is substituting or replacing 400-watt mercury vapor luminaires with 200-watt induction luminaires. So the energy efficiency will be approximately half of what's used today, and the lighting is actually a little superior from the test we actually did in-house last year.
And does the amount for this project of $128,000 include the long-term maintenance on the fixtures?
No,
or is
it's
it
a
just the
capital
purchase?
expense just for the purchase of the luminaires. City electricians will actually install them and maintain them.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, A4, approval of the change order number 1 to 2011 50/50 sidewalk and curb replacement program bid 12-25. Staff recommends that the City Council authorize the city manager to approve change order number 1 to the 2011 50/50 sidewalk and curb replacement contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Schroeder and Schroeder, in the amount of $32,750. The change order will allow an additional 42 homeowners to participate in the year's program. In this year's program, funding will be from the Special Assessment Fund with a total budget of $200,000 and the resident share. Is there a motion? It's been moved in second. Are there any questions, comments? Alderman Rainey?
When you see a change order of this size, I always get concerned about the original bid, and what if this additional amount had been in the original package? Would there have been another bidder? But I didn't take the time, unfortunately, to go back and look at the other bids to know if they were close or what. So, I don't know, what's the legality of...
Well,
I support 100% the change order.
Well, and for this project, we almost always have a change order, and here's why. When we bid it out based on the number of addresses and residents that have already requested the sidewalks, and most people wait until the very last minute to add themselves to the list, or they see information about the 50/50 sidewalk, and then they come back and say, I want to be included, I want to be included. And we accept all the way up to the very last moment, and then we come back and do a change order.
So is that agreement that there could be additional projects included part of the bid, original bid?
Yes. And I can say that our pricing for sidewalk is, we probably have some of the best pricing around in terms of sidewalk replacement.
I'm not even questioning that. I just, because it would have been a larger job with the additional money in it, the additional work. Okay. Just wanted to ask.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A5, accept and place on file the funding year 2010-11 audited annual financial report. Staff recommends that the City Council accept and place on file the City of Evanston's 2010-2011 audited annual financial report. The full report is available, and this was item was held in the committee on September 12th. And Mr. Lyons, I think you are here with the actual folk.
Good evening, members of the committee. Marty Lyons, Assistant City Manager and Treasurer. I have Jason Coyle with us this evening, the partner who worked on the specific job and engagement for the City of Evanston, and he is prepared to go through the management letter and discuss the findings in the audit.
Good evening. As Marty said, I'm Jason Coyle with Baker Tilly. So I'll go through with you briefly the communication from the auditor to management and to the council. Hopefully you have this in front of you. If you flip to page 3, I'll start there. Maybe I should give you a little bit of background. The audit standards changed a couple years ago. They require the auditor to communicate certain things that might come to our attention during the audit to council and to management, and they break them into different categories. One's called material weakness. The other is called significant deficiencies. These are the terms they have to use. Material weakness is a little bit more risky than the significant deficiency, just to kind of give you some perspective there. Not a whole lot of changes in this from the prior year, which is good. The city has relatively few communications, which is a little bit unique for municipalities and communities in general. Many other places, my firm audits have many more communications than this, so just the fact that we have relatively few to communicate to you kind of shows the importance that the council and the administration take as far as remedying some of the things that we've addressed in the past. The first point that we have here is on journal entries, and this is something the city's improved over time. They've made some changes, and we're kind of down to one little last point in this, and there's a little bit of segregation of duties when it comes to journal entries in the accounting manager position. We'd like to see a little bit more review handled in regards to those journal entries, but you can see the city's response here in regards to that. The next point is on external financial reporting on page 4. The city actually prepares the CAFR, the financial statements, which is an achievement in and of itself, and very few communities do that, so you're to be congratulated on that and all the hard work of the finance department in putting that together. We did have an adjustment from a prior period that we noted this year relating to IMRF early retirement incentive. It was a liability that was entered into in previous years that was not identified, and that had to be put onto the financial statements. And because of the fact that was identified, we had to communicate that as a material weakness. But if that had not occurred this year, this material weakness wouldn't be here.
Excuse me one second.
Yes.
We have a question.
Could you, thank you for coming.
Oh, by all means.
And you're not a junior auditor.
No, I'm not.
No. We were told, oh, you want a junior auditor to come and tell you, but no, we wanted you. Could you just explain that a little more clearly to those of us without deep financial backgrounds? Because how does that affect, how did or does not that affect the bottom line on our budget or our available funds, our cash flow, et cetera?
Sure, yeah. Well, when certain people retired from the city, they were under an early retirement incentive, so that obviously costs the city some money. As far as your financial statements, we had to record it as a long-term liability because it was being paid over several years. And so that gets put into the front of the financial statements, what we call the entity-wide financial statement, similar to where your long-term bonds and things like that would go. From a budgetary perspective, though, it would have relatively little effect that we made this adjustment, because I'm sure Marty and his team was already including these payments within the budget every year, and so I wouldn't think that would have too much change because they knew this liability existed, but they were thinking of it more in the terms of we have to make this payment every year for several years, as opposed to the fact that at the time the people left, we had a large liability that we needed to put on the books and then pay down over a couple of years. So from a cash flow perspective and from a budgetary perspective, I don't think anything changed. We just needed to record the full amount on the financial statements, though. Does that help explain it?
More or less, yeah. More or less. Would it have had any effect when we went to see Moody's or Fitch on our bond rating?
It's a relatively small dollar amount in comparison to all the debt that the city holds. So I don't think it would have had much effect. The fact that it was not there could only actually help you in the bond rating, because this is some some liability that should have been there that wasn't presented. So.
All right, that's a little clearer.
If we want to move on to some of the other findings, recommendations that we had on page 5, we now jump down to significant deficiencies. So not quite as risky of communications here. The first one is on your IT or information technology. This, again, we've had many more points on IT in the past, but we've seen many of those be reduced and remediated throughout the years. Right now, the city's kind of at the point where if you hold yourself out to a certain benchmark, we'd like to see some stronger passwords and things like that in place, but you're limited by the fact that you have certain software in place, and the software has some limitations upon it. So there's likely nothing that we'll see done here, but the standards still say that we need to continue to communicate that to you, simply so that you and the administration understands there is some risk that continues to be in existence.
Alderman Rainey?
Which software you're talking about?
It's listed here within the point. CryWolf, JDE, and RevTrack, they all do require passwords, but just not to a particular complexity, if you will.
So the J.D. Edwards software, what page are you looking at?
I'm sorry, this is page 5.
Page 5.
Yep, that's in the middle, the second paragraph, excuse me. Yep, that one's.
And Alderman Rainey, one of the things that we do have is the system software is kept up to date by the IT division. So anybody who gets on the system must go through it's a 8-digit. You must change it every 4 months. It also requires both alpha and numeric. So it's a fairly strong password system for the entire system. It's just once in, we have some of these older systems that haven't been updated that have smaller requirements for a password. Only 6 characters needed or things of that nature.
The final point in here is on cash receipts. There's some, and I believe this might have been added this year, and I'm not sure if this was in here last year. This was on the, in the collector's office, there's some segregation of duties concerns where one person is performing a function that ideally we'd like to see performed by more than one person. It's only a significant deficiency, though, and doesn't rise to the level of material weakness because of the fact that a large portion of the city's revenues are directly deposited within your bank statements. Things like property taxes, sales taxes, everything that comes through the state of Illinois is direct deposited into your bank account. So there's really no risk of that money ever being recorded in error or anything along those lines. This simply has to do with local collections here at the collector's office. And this was really brought to our attention, and I think this is what came up during the last meeting, by another report that we had done that I believe is attached to this at the city's direction to look into the collector's office and some of the procedures and controls that were going on in that office to see if they couldn't identify ways to improve the controls and identify other efficiencies within those operations. And in doing that, we came up with this recommendation that we thought rose to the level of a significant deficiency that we wanted to communicate to the council and to the administration. And that is the end of the required communication to the council as far as our recommendations on the risks that we identified during the audit. The rest of the information in here is just an observation or required communication under the audit standards in regards to what an audit is, what the responsibility of the auditor is, what the responsibility of the administration and the city council is. I won't go into that in depth. I would allow you to read that, and if you ever had any questions, I'd be more than happy to take those.
Go ahead.
If we could talk a little more about the collector's office.
Sure.
And do you have, I finally did pull up the September 12 highlighted audit here. Do you have any suggestions about the collector's office being connected to something else? For example, it's my understanding that a city sticker and the police department, somehow or another, the records at the Secretary of State's office and the city sticker are in no way connected. So unless a police officer, I think it's been explained to me, runs a license plate and sees that there's no city sticker, there's no way to know that, you know, the city sticker is in any way connected.
Sure. Sounds like a good idea. In what you're saying, I don't know the cost
Because
of
the
doing
amount of
something along
money
those lines.
collected at the collector's office, even though it's not coming from the county or the state, is still a significant number.
Sure, Sure. Well, the scope of the work that the city hired us to do was more to look at the controls that were in place and identify any efficiencies. You know, this kind of idea that you're proposing here was a little bit outside of what we were doing. Something, obviously, you might want to continue to look into. There might be other ways to use different databases by different organizations to identify if there's any potential uncollected amounts there.
But I've just always felt that the collector's office was sort of the Wild West. You know, whatever came in there, I guess we deposit it, and
Yeah, well, I mean, there's many controls that they do have in place. There's ways even that you do through your monthly reviews of budget to actuals, and you get all your treasurer's reports, and the administration goes through and does a lot of their budget to actuals, and so they know where the revenue should be coming in, and if the revenue's not coming in within those parameters, I mean, then that's when it's time to investigate, well, what's going on and things like that. So there's definitely controls that are in place over the collections there. So maybe not quite the Wild West, but we did identify certain controls and efficiencies that we think could be improved, though, within the report that we did about a year ago now. Yeah, Pamela.
And Alderman Rainey, one of the things that we are, members of the committee, what we are looking at is also as a part of the automated license plate reading system that we are looking at, that will help tie us into where the PEO who's on the street is going to have the same data. They'll have an up-to-date database when they leave in the morning, or we may be looking at the one that is online that is always up to date. So if somebody came in and made a payment at 11 and they're out at 3 doing the enforcement, they'll know that that car doesn't have its sticker on yet, but they've paid. And that helps save a lot of heartache as far as issuing a ticket when things are just crossing in the mail, if you will. So we are working towards improving that.
Great. Alderman Rain, do you have anything else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, pretty much in line with what Mr. Lyons told us. Yeah, great. Which is good. Okay. Do we need to, I think we, do we need to? We need to accept it. Is there a second? It's been moved and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, A61, Resolution 55-R-11, to accept grant awards for the maximum award amount of $42,528.50 from Age Options in order to award a contract to help fund a senior meals congregate program at the Levy Center and at Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center.
Move approval.
Second.
Excellent.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Are there any questions, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A62, I move approval of the contract to Catholic Charities Lunch and More for Senior Meal Program. Staff recommends City Council approval of the contract between the City of Evanston and Catholic Charities Lunch and More to provide a senior meal program at the Levy Center in Fleetwood Jourdain from a period of October 1, 2011 through September 30th, 2012, in the not-to-exceed amount of $4.15 per lunch meal. The program will be reimbursed through a grant from Age Options with estimated city funding of $13,000.
Move approval for that as well.
Question.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes. How did it come to be that we got involved with the Catholic Charities? Is that the only program that offers the lunches?
It's one of the few businesses they can still be in, now that they're out of the.
Doug Gaynor, Director of Parks, Recreation, Community Services. Chairman Holmes, members of the committee. Age Options bid this, and Catholic Charities is the award.
It came with the, it came with a grant. Okay. I didn't quite understand that. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A7 has been withdrawn. A8 has been withdrawn. And
What was A8?
A8, I have no idea, but It was
Why tell
withdrawn
us
in our
it was
pack.
withdrawn? I know, but why tell us something's been withdrawn if we don't know?
I'm sure it
what
was in our long, it was.
We're not confused
all
by
the-
the numbering.
The city manager will, well, it was, I'm sure it's on our long piece.
No, I asked. I sent a request wondering what it was.
Mr. City Manager.
Chair Holmes, members of the committee, how you make sausage for a city council agenda is that we get to the point where the items are numbered and lettered, and if an issue is not ready for the sausage, it is taken and put aside. So that item was not ready for the sausage, and so it was not included. So rather than spend the staff time of renumbering the agenda, we use that filler, pardon the pun.
Oh, wow.
So now you've made me even more curious.
But we hope it's still as tasty as it would be without that item.
It's a tasty.
And we will assume that's the same for 10, so that when we come to that one.
That's right.
Okay, same answer. Okay, A9, Resolution 56-R-11, authorizing a construction funding agreement with IDOC for the Chicago Avenue streetscape project from South Boulevard to Main Street. Staff recommends approval of the proposed Resolution 56-R-11, authorizing the city manager to sign the construction funding agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation, IDOC, for the Chicago Avenue streetscape project from South Boulevard to Main Street. Funding will be provided by a federal Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program grant in the amount of $800,460 and CIP funding for $201,141 from the Chicago Avenue streetscape account. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Any questions, comments? It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A10? A10 has also been withdrawn. A11 is Resolution 53-R-11, authorizing the city manager to execute license agreements for the installation of the solar canopies and electric vehicles charging station. Can we get?
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, now, we do have one speaker, Ms. Sharon Finnegan. Is that Fagan?
Staff, we wanted to introduce.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you, I'm sorry. First, go ahead.
Good evening. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Catherine Hurley, Sustainable Programs Coordinator. I thought I'd just give a real quick overview on this item in case there were any questions. As many people may know, the city has been collaborating with IGO Car Sharing since 2005 to provide residents with convenient and cost-effective access to temporary car rental. Through grant funding, IGO is adding plug-in electric vehicles to their fleet and will be deploying 36 vehicles across the Chicagoland area. IGO is proposing to install 4 of these electric vehicles in Evanston with the intent of having 2 vehicles along with charging stations and a solar canopy to help generate energy needed to charge those cars at 2 different locations in Evanston. So essentially we're looking for 2 parking lots where we can install 2 cars at each with a solar canopy at each. As part of the grant, IGO will pay for the installation of the charging stations and the solar canopies and associated electric infrastructure, as well as pay the city of Evanston a monthly lease fee that's being proposed at $80 for each of the lots, parking spaces. So there'll be no infrastructure cost to the city of Evanston for the project. The total investment by IGO and as part of the grant is estimated at more than $250,000 for the project. So this is a good opportunity to take advantage of a great grant that IGO is participating in. This proposal was originally presented at the Transportation and Parking Committee meeting on August 24th, and we came back again on September 21st to discuss the proposal. At the 21st September meeting, the Parking and Transportation Committee approved this project to have parking at 2 different locations, parking lot 27, which is at 621 Oak Avenue, and parking lot 4, which is on Central Street and Stewart Avenue. And the committee approved this to come here to Administration and Public Works Committee. Now, as you know, City manager mentioned making sausages. Sometimes things change. So there was a lot of good discussion at Parking and Transportation Committee, and the selection of Lot 27 was something that was discussed during that meeting, and with the intention that IGO was supposed to make sure to go back and look at that lot and make sure that it met their needs. Over the weekend, and today spoke with members of IGO that are here, and Sharon's going to come up in a minute to talk a little bit about their perspective. But they've concluded that Lot 27 doesn't meet their needs at this time, and so Sharon, you want to come up and give a little overview of that? And there are pictures and diagrams of the proposal in the packet, and then we can answer questions after.
I think Alderman Grover had something for you before Sharon speaks.
Well, I think for both of you, and thank you again, Ms. Feigen, for making this extraordinary offer to Evanston. Ms. Feigen is an Evanston resident, so thank you for investing locally. IGO is a nonprofit, correct me if I'm wrong, and thank you for thinking of our Central Street parking lot as one of the prime locations for this installation. I understand that in the Parking and Transportation Committee, there was discussion of the lot behind the library as a first choice for installation of the solar panel, the canopied parking spaces. And if the location on Oak Street across from the parking lot is problematic for, and you'll help us understand why, could we revisit perhaps the lot behind the library as an alternative? So anyway, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to talk about this. I just wanted to say I am an Evanston resident, as you mentioned, in your ward, in fact, and I've been an Evanston resident for 25 years and been very involved in a number of different civic activities in the community, and we brought IGO to Evanston in 2005 in large part because I really wanted it to be here and to have it have car sharing available in Evanston as well as in Chicago, where we started. And just as a nonprofit, I just want to mention that our mission is really to serve all communities, and it's also to make it possible to live well without owning a car. And so the reason that IGO exists, and it's part of the Center for Neighborhood Technology, that's our parent organization, and we were founded to, to fulfill this mission and to basically try to save people a lot of money, which it's turned out over time. IGO members spend about half of what the average car owner spends, so it's a savings of multiple thousands of dollars a year. It costs over $7,000 a year to own and operate a vehicle in Chicago, and so a IGO member spends a few $1,000s a year. So we thought that was a really, it's been a valuable program, as well as all the environmental benefits of car sharing. And so the solar canopy project, as mentioned, the reason that we're doing it is we want all our vehicles to be low emission, the lowest emission. If we're going to have cars out, we want them to have the smallest footprint, and electric vehicles is a way to do that. And then we wanted to take it a step further and have solar canopies to power the cars and the charging stations. And I just wanted to mention that also as part of this project, in addition to the 2 spaces that will, for IGO, we also have worked with the vendor that is going to install the canopies, and he is interested in putting 2 charging stations for the general public. So if you're interested, that's also an offer, and that comes also would be included in this whole thing. So yeah, we're trying to bring all of this here, and we're really excited about it. It's a great way to introduce electric vehicles to the community. Now, as far as the locations, we had looked at I think the library lot would be a fantastic location, not only because of where it is in the downtown, and we know that there would be a lot of usage both from businesses as well as residents that live around there, but also because as part of this project, we're going to actually install a display sign that is an educational sign that will, talk about how this all works and the importance of it. And it just seemed like it was very fitting to have that by the library as well. So, and the problem at the post office lot is that it's a little more unknown for us, and this is a big infrastructure investment. Once we put once we put all this in, we're committed to being there. And if it doesn't work out, we're kind of stuck. And we did have vehicles right next to there, and we actually had to pull them out because we didn't have sufficient usage. So we're just a little nervous about, doing it there. On Central Street, there's been people calling us for like years, asking us if IGO could come to Central Street. So we know that, we feel confident that that will work.
Alderman Rainey?
So what is the problem with going to the library lot? Is there any problem with doing that? And if not, why don't we amend the recommendation to include the library lot? I mean, there's got to be some issue here that we don't know about.
Well, you are Ricky.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, as Ms. Hurley mentioned, this had come before the Transportation Parking Committee on 2 occasions. On the second occasion, Alderman Fisk, whose ward the library parking is, objected to taking up the spaces. I was not at the meeting, so I don't know that I can speak to all of her objections. But I think she was concerned that the lot is impacted by lots of folks at this point, and by reserving spaces for this or any additional use was of concern to her.
Alderman Grover.
Mr. Voss is here and perhaps can help us with understanding whether or not this lot is overused or underutilized, or whatever the terminology is, and whether there is capacity to give up essentially 2 parking spaces to the IGO cars, 4 that would be then canopied.
Chairman Holmes, members of the committee, Alderman Grover, it's anecdotally, I spoke to the enforcement officers prior to our meeting at the parking committee, and at that time they thought there was about a 50 to 60% occupancy rate. The only thing I can refer to on a survey is I personally conducted a survey in that lot in August of 2009. It ran from August 13th to August 15th, and at that time there was a consistent occupancy rate of 40%. So I really can't really speak to the current, and also at this time with the construction of the parking garages, I'm not sure how that would affect the occupancy rate as we speak.
Alderman Rainey.
Once, not long ago, I was on an expressway, and it was at rush hour, and there was one of those traditional station wagons, the old-fashioned kind, and it had 3 seats. And the seat in the back was facing backwards, and the seat in the middle, and then the front. And there were 9 people. I'm sure it's illegal to have 9 people in a station wagon. And it appeared to be mostly men in suits. And there was a sign on the back of the car, "Don't laugh, we're keeping 8 cars off the road." And so I think to put 2 IGO cars out, we're probably keeping 5 or 10 cars off the road. So I think that I'd be willing to listen to Alderman Fisk's argument, but I would like to amend this to locate the IGO canopy and whatever else incidentals at the library parking lot.
I'll second that.
Mr. Voss, can you give us that parking lot number so we can have the right?
I'm sorry, it's parking lot number 3.
Okay. And also, if you have any more canopies or IGO cars that you would like to locate in a city lot, there's one at the corner of Chicago and Howard Street, right near public transportation. People could get off the train and get in their car.
That would be great. We're interested.
Okay, we'll talk.
I don't know about the canopies, but the cars, for sure.
Okay.
We do have in front of us a map of the IGO vehicle locations in Evanston that Ms. Hurley provided to us, so that you have a good idea of what the distribution is in Evanston.
Thank you. I think that we have to first vote on accepting the resolution, and then we'll go to the amendment. I think I'm correct. Is that right? Is that right, Mr. Fry?
Didn't we already move approval?
We moved in, but we didn't vote. We didn't vote, so I think we have to vote first.
The amendment has to be considered first, and
Oh, the
then
amendment first.
and then move to approve as amended.
Okay, all right. So it's been moved in second on the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so then now to the original motion. It's been moved in second? Yes, it did. We did that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so there's a motion now amended to substitute Lot 3 for
To Lot 3, and, well, it's actually Lot 3 and 4 to replace lot number 27. Okay. The original proposal was Lot 27 and 4, and now we're doing Lot 3 and 4. Is there a motion?
I so move.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that concludes the agenda for the Administration and Public Works Committee. Planning and Development will meet at 7:15. Thank you.
Now, there's